And you also let me know if
We're live.
we are.
We are live on
Let me know.
YouTube. Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Krupp. I'm here on behalf of Caminos de Agua, together with
Joaquin Murrieta from Watershed Management Group in Tucson, Arizona.
And we're here today. This is a special Caminos de Agua event. Caminos de Agua had a whole series of
And you also let me know if
during for World Water Week a couple weeks ago, but because of the coronavirus pandemic, all the events had to be canceled. And Joaquin was going to be the keynote speaker at a bunch of the events, and unfortunately was not able to travel from Tucson, Arizona to San Miguel de Allende. So we're doing at least this interview live on YouTube for the next hour as a partial replacement of the World Water Week events. A little bit more about me. I was the Research and Technology Development Coordinator at Caminos de Agua for the past 3 years, and I recently relocated to Tucson, Arizona in September to start a graduate program studying water policy and water governance at the University of Arizona. So it's just coincidence that Joaquin and I both happen to be in Tucson right now. And for me, just a little personal note about this session and this day. I grew up in a Jewish family, and today is the first night of Passover, so I just got off of a virtual Passover Seder with my whole family. And Passover is the time in the Jewish tradition where Jews remember and celebrate times when Jews were oppressed and commit to fighting oppression in all of its forms and injustice in all of its forms. And this is an excellent way and an excellent moment to think about ways in which coronavirus is intensifying existing oppression, and ways in which we can think about our water systems and the way that our water systems can be more just, more fair, and more equitable for everybody. I'm really excited to be here to be interviewing Joaquin Murrieta. In one moment, I'm going to ask Joaquin to talk a little bit more about this session and introduce himself more fully. Just one note, we're going to be on for an hour. The last 15 or 20 minutes of the session we're going to dedicate to your question and answers. So if you look to the right of your screen on YouTube, there is a question and answer, a comment bar. Any comments? Yep, some of you have already commented in the comment bar. Any comments that y'all put into the comment bar there, we will see. We'll pull them together throughout the conversation, and we'll ask some of your questions to Joaquin in the last 15 or 20 minutes of the call. So if you have any questions at any point, stick them in there, and we'll be keeping our eye on the comments bar. It's to the right of your video screen. Also, we've had a couple of comments from other folks before the call that people would have a special interest right now in hand washing because of all of this hand washing craze. I'm washing my hands like thousands of times more in a given week than I would have before the coronavirus. So we'll have a special focus on hand washing during this session. I think those were all my announcements. For now, Joaquin, welcome, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, and thank you to Dylan, to Paco, to you, Aaron, for putting us here virtually with all of you in San Miguel, but also all over the world. I just noticed that somebody from Baja California Sur is telling us that it's listening to us. So that's very nice that this time of pandemic is actually giving us opportunity to reach out in different ways. Is giving us opportunity to create community in different ways. Is maintaining the distance, yes, but it's physical distance, it's not social distance. And I just want to emphasize that because the work of Camino de Agua and the work of Watershed Management Group has a lot to do with community, has a lot to do with how do we relate with our neighbors, how do we relate to the world. And so my name is Joaquin Murrieta. Thank you once again. And this is just a teaser because I do want to be physically present in San Miguel de Allende and experience a wonderful work over there. And what is it that we can collaborate together? I am from Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. I study agronomy over there. Moved to Tucson to study, same as you, Aaron. I came to study here my master's in economics. And I did suffer a lot on that field. I graduated, went back to Mexico, worked for the state government of Sonora for 3-4 years, and come back for my PhD on natural resources, but management. But mainly my focus on that is the relation of humans and nature. How do we deal with nature? How do we relate with nature? And in the last, with water, with restoration, but also done a lot of other type of work with community development. 80 peoples here in the US, Canada, Mexico, Peru, Chile, and other community-based projects, including other nonprofits like Sonora Institute, Environmental Defense Fund. I worked for 5-7 years with National Geographic on ecotourism, geotourism, product development. So it's been very interesting to see that relation of us humans and nature. That's what I like to emphasize. What is our relationship with nature? In the last 7 years, I've been working a lot with, Watershed Management Group on urban components. What is the role of cities, of urban elements in watershed management? What is the role of the city in dealing with water and humans? So I find fascinating that field because of what it entails. Humans, the environment, we humans love the urban environment, and we're fascinated with it, regardless if we are indoor or not right now. We like the malls, we like the movies, we like the operas, we just love the urban environment. Most of the amenities for us humans that we enjoy are here in the urban setting. Yes, sometimes we get out, sometimes go to rural areas, but most of us are here in the urban environment. I'll stop there.
Great. Thanks a lot, Joaquin. Excellent introduction. I've gotten a couple of comments in the feed that my mic is low. If you can hear me now, please just put a comment in the feed. I'm just going to try and hold my microphone a little closer to my mouth. That might be the best we can do for now. Moving back to Joaquin, you just mentioned a lot of different fields: water policy, city policy, state policy, but I know you also do a lot of household work, and you talk about some of these abstract theoretical topics about connections between humans and nature and society. What is your goal? Simplify this for all of us. What's your goal in all of this?
It's very simple. Most of us have a roof over overhead, meaning a house, meaning a building. And in order to the sustainability levels that we talk about, how can your home, regardless of where you are in the world, can be a productive unit? I get fascinated with that. Can your house produce water? Great challenge. Can your house produce energy? Can your house be a sanctuary for nature? There is a lot of very simple things that we can do to make our homes productive, to make the way we are living in urban environments to be more productive. And that way, we're consuming less stuff. We are consuming less water, we are consuming less energy, we are consuming less supermarket because you are also producing food. So we can talk a lot about that. How can your house become a productive unit of water? And that's why, again, I like Caminos de Agua, because you are in that track of developing homes that are productive units of water. And that's fascinating. Imagine towns, cities, states that are producing their own water. They're changing a lot of things. Does that make more sense now?
That makes a lot of sense, and that's an excellent transition. So to think about the productive household or what an individual household can do, we're going to jump to a tour that Joaquin took me on the other day of his house, demonstrating some of the different active and passive water systems that he has implemented in his home. So here you go, a tour of Joaquin's house. Good morning, Aaron Krupp here with Caminos de Agua. I'm here sitting with
Joaquin Murrieta from Watershed Management Group,
who is very graciously giving us a tour of all of the passive and active water systems in his home.
We get 10 to 12 inches of rain in this environment. So those inches of rain, we're trying to capture some of that rain in this home, which is my house. There are two ways to store that water. There is an active way, that means a tank, or there is a passive way, that means going into our basin or nature.
First, we'll take a look at Joaquin's active rainwater harvesting system, where rainfall is captured as it hits the roof and is collected in a storage tank.
So today, or right now, I'm just showing how the water we get collected from the roof. It rains, the water is guided with this gutter and it comes to this piping. This clean water goes underground. It's a wet system, we call it. It goes all the way to that cistern over there, which we're going to walk over there now. That's a 2,500 gallon cistern. So water comes in here, it fills the tank all the way to the top. This here, and it comes into this wonderful rain chain, we call it, and this is the overflow. Testing this to see how it works. It is already and it works beautifully. So it comes down here into a rock work that fills it up into a passes the basin that collects the overflow water.
Joaquin will show us some different ways to
An outdoor shower. It's actually so pleasant to take an outdoor shower here in the Sonora desert. So it's very nice to come here in the morning, take a shower. We heat up the water with a pipe that is coiled on the roof, and it's a black pipe. So that's how we heat up the water. It's just with the sun. We take a shower, and the water goes out to irrigate some of the aromatic plants that we have here in our home.
Let's go take a look at the composting toilet, which saves water and produces fertilizer.
In terms of balancing the supply and demand of water for this house, believe it or not, we do not poop on drinking water, on potable water. We poop in this wonderful composting toilet, and that way we are saving 25% of water for our home. It's also very, very pleasant to come here. There are no smells, there are no flies, there are no mosquitoes, there is nothing. It's very, very clean. So at the end of 4 or 5 months, we have 55 gallons of the most wonderful human manure, we call it. It's manure that you can use in fruit trees or you can use in your regular gardens. That way we're diminishing the use of water, we're increasing the fertility of our soils, and that's it.
We're going to head over to where Joaquin's front yard meets the street to check out the passive rain garden.
So again, I mean, we were talking about active and passive systems. Right now, we are in front of our residence here in Tucson, and you can see all these wonderful flowers that are coming up. This is spring again in the Sonora desert. All these plants are native of Sonora. So this is what rain garden. The idea of this rain garden, imitate nature. If you go outside Tucson right now, like in Picacho Peak, you're going to see all these flowers. You're going to see all this vegetation, and it's incredible to see the birds, to hear the birds. But this is what I wake up, get out every morning. Water is coming from the street, Water is coming from the street and it's entering right into here. So it enters into this wonderful basin that here. Water gets collected, up, it jumps into that. Once the water of this level of the street longer coming in because we're at the same level. So with that, we're doing so much benefit. We're creating all this life, all these wonderful colors. We don't irrigate this. This is just with rainwater. So imagine all this lushness that we have in our home with no need of irrigation. Right? Yeah, it doesn't look like that all year long. This is spring, so that's why it looks like this. So we're working with the seasons of the Sonora Desert. So fills this up, water no longer comes in because it's full, so water will continue into the street. But right here we collected around 1,000 gallons of rain. What that means is we're diminishing flooding in the city of Tucson. We're incorporating water into the aquifer and in this water. That's the beauty of passive systems. This is just as the home unit. It can be extrapolated, it can be integrated into the whole street, into the whole neighborhood, into the whole city. Imagine having a city with passive systems like this. How wonderful can that be? And that way we're recovering our aquifers, we're bringing life into our cities, or bringing nature into. I'm going to stop.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So I heard there were a couple issues with the video being choppy. So apologies to anyone if we're having bugs in the internet. But thank you, Joaquin, for giving that excellent tour of your house and for showing us all of the different active systems and the passive rain garden out front. It was a pleasure to see all the work that you've done over years and years in your space.
And it's, I'm sorry, but it's not that long actually. We moved to this house 5 years ago. So all the things you see there, my wife and I did it in 3 years.
I take it all back. That seems pretty doable.
It's very doable.
Yeah. So I know you do some work at the policy level, but you also focus your work in households and in schools. Can you tell us, like, specifically, talk a little bit about why you care about working with families and with communities at the household scale?
Again, when we start thinking about productive units of water in this case, if we start working at the home unit, at the residential level, we, in addition to seeing the rain, in addition to developing wonderful rain gardens, we are connecting people to the watershed. We are connecting from their home. And when you create that connection, you can do a lot of things. You educate, you transform behavior. They help you in advocacy. They help you to change laws. Personal connection in their house, and they are connecting from their house. They are connecting to the watershed, and they are connecting to nature. And I put myself as an example. If I look that way, I'm seeing my wonderful rain garden. Every time I walk outside my house, I see monarch butterflies, I see all kinds of lizards, I see all kinds of birds, I see all kinds of rabbits, I see all kinds of wonderful nature right here in my house. And so imagine developing streets, homes, neighborhoods that are connected to nature, that understand the cycle of water. With that, we can start transforming our neighborhoods and our cities. So that connectivity from the residential level, very simple, but it can create a lot of change in the way we are living in our urban environments.
Sure. So some people may argue that you can make change at the household level, but that so many of the problems, the water scarcity or the water contamination, are systemic problems. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why does the work that you do on the household scale relate to the larger systems?
Of course it does. And for example, right here in Tucson, and use 80 gallons per person a day. Per person. Imagine there is a house of 3 people. Suddenly there is thousands of gallons a year. So where is all that water come from, and where is all that water goes after you use it? So there is a resource out there, which is water, that we use it in our home. So if we come down in Tucson, from 80 gallons, and before that, 10 years ago, we were using 95 gallons per person a day here in Tucson. 20 years ago, we were using 125 gallons. So technology, thanks to education, and thanks to policy, we're using less water now than 20 years ago. Population is bigger. So that's where the policy becomes very, very interesting. And so from 80 gallons that we are right now, we as a Watershed Management Group, we want to come down to 40 gallons per person a day. If we are at 40 gallons per person a day in Tucson, we are within our hydro-regionalism. We are within the means of our watershed. So that way we don't need to bring water from somewhere else, or we don't need to dry our rivers, or we don't need to keep exploiting our aquifers. Understanding that human behavior, water usage, but it's also creating a supply demand. And those 40 gallons per person a day, if they come from rainwater, that's how we're betting. If they come from rainwater, that means we can restore our aquifers, and that means we can restore our rivers. We want to see our rivers flowing here in Tucson in the next 30 to 40 years. So that's the power of water harvesting, and that's the power of education, and that's the power of connectivity. Yes, it's not so easy. It takes time, but we dried the Santa Cruz River here in Tucson in 70, was still semi-flowing. So from the 60s up to the present, which is 40, 50 years, we dry it up. And that's when we pump a lot of water. That's when we contaminated our aquifers. So with water harvesting, we're actually very slowly recovering that. So in 40, 50 years, we can be back to the systems that we have here in Tucson in the 1960s in terms of rivers flowing.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I would love to see water in the Santa Cruz River.
Yes, me too. And that's my personal excitement. Yes, I like working with people, and I like working at the residential level. My goal is to bring rivers back. That's why I do this personally, because I want to see the Santa Cruz River flow again, the Rillito River, the Sabino Creek, Pantano Wash. Those are streams that we used to have here in Tucson. That, again, I mean, 30 years, 20 years ago, there used to be dumps. People just throw all kinds of things into these systems. So we're slowly recovering that, and that's becoming the pride of the neighborhood and is the pride of the city in some sections.
So to bring our rivers back, it sounds like it requires every bit of innovation and every bit of education and every bit of efficiency, at least in water use efficiency, that we can get. And because we're in a moment where hand washing is more important than it's ever been before, we're going to do a little spotlight on one little innovative technology called the Tippy Tap. It is a hand washing technology that requires no contact and saves a lot of hand washing water. Can you tell us a little bit about the Tippy Tap and where it comes from, its history, how you got involved with it before we jump to a quick video?
And it's funny because the tippy tap for me is one of the most tool that we have at our office. And we used to, I didn't work in India, but our office used to have a program in India 10 years ago because there were students at the U of A from India, and we took the technologies from India, from here, and that's how the tippy tap actually started happening. So it comes from India, and so we adapted. We developed better efficiencies for this system. And it comes to efficiency because 1 gallon of water, you can wash the hands of 30 people with 1 gallon of water. The thing that we're doing at Watershed Management Group is always balancing supply and demand. How much water do you have as a watershed, and how much water can you use to maintain the balance between humans and nature? Because water is not only for humans. So the tippy tap, 30 people can wash their hands with 4 liters, with 1 gallon. Efficiency right there. And if every home has a tippy tap in their backyard, in the front yard, so that way you don't need to come in when you're working outside, when you're doing parties, when you're doing whatever, at the same time. And it's such a simple little tool. Actually, right now, in the moment of pandemic, we, with the city of Tucson, they hire us, they contract us to develop several tippy taps that we're putting in parks, that we are putting in shelters, that we're putting in homeless shelters for people to wash their hands. So it's becoming such a wonderful efficiency of a tool for the city of Tucson in the moments of pandemic. And it's great that the city of Tucson actually hired us to do that. Something that we've been using kind of for fun in rural areas, in schools and things like that. So now the tippy tap actually captured a lot of attention in the news, a lot of attention with the community, and a lot of attention with the social change, that this tiny little thing is actually providing great help.
All right, so let's take a look at the tippy tap, a simple hands-free technology for efficient hand washing. Here we go.
Finally, I got a
I want to see it.
inside my house, and I did some work there on my wonderful little garden. So now I need to wash my hands on this wonderful tippy tap that is in the back of my house. So this is how a tippy tap works. You have a pedal here, put your foot in there, and make some action, and water start coming out of this blue gallon that I have here. Water is coming out. The beautiful thing of the tippy tap is that you wash your hands without touching anything else except the soap. So you grab the soap, make a wonderful foam, and start washing your hands for 20 seconds. Make sure it's 20 seconds. You can actually sing las mañanitas, and that's 20 seconds in Espanol anyway. So rub your hands very nice between your fingers, get the thumbs, and get the fingernails as well with this action that you can do in the palms of your hands. So like that. Go higher a little bit. Rub once again. And that's the beauty of the tippy tap. Look at that water coming out. Finishing up. How do we wash the hands? And the nice thing of the tippy tap is that 30 people can wash their hands with 1 gallon of water. I am done. So imagine our wonderful city of Tucson with tippy taps all over town. So now, at the moment of pandemic, people can actually wash their hands in public spaces. Right. Thank you so much.
Okay, and we're back. So thanks for sharing that excellent video of the tippy tap. For those who are interested, there are short one-page manuals linked in the description box below, where you click show more under the YouTube video for excellent drawn graphics of how to build your own tippy tap in your own yard or in your own public space, in your own community. I believe that Caminos de Agua also has a tippy tap training coming up. So feel free to get in touch with folks at Caminos de Agua in the near future, or folks at Watershed Management Group or Joaquin.
Yes, and again, it's not the grandiose technological things that are going to take us out of the city. Sometimes it becomes to very simple techniques, like the water harvesting, like the tippy tap, like a rain garden. And here in Tucson, we get a year 10 to 12 inches of rain. So those inches of rain, which is like a ruler, 12 inches of rain is a foot. It's about that much. That's what we get of water right here in Tucson in the Sonoran Desert. I don't know how many inches or millimeters of rain you get in San Miguel, but that water that hits the city of Tucson, I love saying this, is enough water to provide for all the needs of the city. So if we start seeing rain as a resource, it becomes such a wonderful tool. And it's 10 to 12 inches. It's not that much water. But that water, when it's flowing on the streets, on the rooftops, when it's flowing on the sidewalks, when it's flowing on the hard surfaces, as we call them, it's actually a great resource. And where cities, the way they're designed right now, we are trying to get rid of water when it rains. We even create sewers for that, the storm sewer systems that some of the Mexico cities are lacking, which I'm glad. So imagine all that water being as a resource. And when it's raining right here in my rain garden, it's very, very nice to see that the water that is on the street is actually coming and is feeding my rain garden. I love when that happens. So right there in my front yard, I'm infiltrating anything between 1,000 to 2,000 gallons of water. That means it's 2,000 gallons of water less on the street, and it's 2,000 gallons more in my front yard. And some of that gets infiltrated into our aquifer. So if everybody starts doing that in Tucson, our aquifers are going to be replenishing, or we're going to be using less drinking water for outdoor use. That's one of our goals. I'll stop it there again.
Joaquin, yeah, so you mentioned that Tucson gets between 12 and 14 inches of rain, more or less. It's like 250 to 300 millimeters of rain. That's about half as much as in San Miguel de Allende, where many of our viewers are, and a similar amount that falls in La Paz, Baja California Sur. And you're telling me that we have enough water falling out of the sky to meet all of our needs. If that's the case, why are we trying to find other sources of water? Why are we bringing water in from other places?
Exactly. Why are we doing that? Sorry, Aaron, I'm not hearing you right now, but that's a great question in terms of why are we bringing water from somewhere else, and why are we over pumping our aquifers, which that's one of the cases in Guanajuato, in San Miguel. And we're doing the same here in Tucson. The rivers are dead because we over pump our aquifers. The thing is that at some point we forgot about the rain as a resource, all right? And now we're trying to get rid of that water because it becomes a nuisance, because it's flooding our cities. We start transforming that. See rain as a resource, and it's nothing new. Water harvesting has been with us for, in this part of the world, at least in the Sonoran Desert, it's at least 15 to 1,700 years ago, the Hohokam people were harvesting the rain, right? And they're producing agaves, they were producing all kinds of things. We know that because there is a close by out of Tucson, a section where that still can be seen. That's an archaeological site. And same thing if you go to Europe. Some of the castles that are built, all the castle was designed and it's on top of a huge cistern. That's why sometimes you see a well in the middle of a castle and the castle is on an island. So that's how they were getting their water. Technology appears and we can pump water. We discover the water that is underground. And we start pumping a lot of water. And that's when our rivers start being drying down because the water keeps going down. All right, the water table. And let me come back to what happened. So anyway, we dry our rivers, water tables are down, occurring because we just do the very bare bone minimum of water in those aquifers. That's when you start seeing more arsenic. That's when you start seeing more fluoride. That happened naturally, right? There are some other ways to pollute the aquifer too, but in the natural way, when you deplete aquifers, that's when you're going to start finding a lot of those pollutants, which are in a natural form. So let's think what happened with rain when it rains. What happened in nature when it rains? I like to think in very simple terms. When it rains in nature, and this is a very general thinking, 50%, 50% of water infiltrates. 10% is the water that we see in the surface, and 40% is evapotranspiration, which is a big word that sometimes it doesn't mean much to a lot of people. But evapotranspiration, sometimes I call it is life. Is the trees using some of that water and evaporating some of that water. All right. So 50% underground water, 10% surface runoff, and 40% evapotranspiration. That's in a natural form. What happened when you put a city on top of nature? And remember, all the cities are on top of nature. We humans develop the urban environment that we love. So what happened when you put a city on top of nature? Okay, we have a city, San Miguel, Tucson. What happened when it rains in that city? Because the cities have a lot of hard surfaces, the rooftops, the sidewalks, the streets, to mention trees. Water doesn't infiltrate, and it's looking a way to infiltrate, but it doesn't find a way to infiltrate. So we're only infiltrating 5 to 10% of that water. That's why in downtown Tucson, that's the deepest right there in downtown Tucson, because we're not infiltrating nothing of water. We're just infiltrating 5%. But check this, 55% of the surface runoff, that happens in the cities. % of rain is on the street. That's huge amounts of water. That's incredible. It's millions of gallons of water that we're just sending somewhere else. And 30% is evapotranspiration. It's 30 because we don't have as many trees in urban environments or as much vegetation. So very simple, 5 to 10 infiltration, 55% surface runoff. That's where the opportunity is. And 30% is evapotranspiration. So if we see that 55%, where is the opportunity to harvest the rain? I'm always thinking of that. If I go to San Miguel, where is the opportunity to harvest the rain? Is it in a park? Is it on a street? Is it on a home? Is it on a parking lot? Is it on a huge building? Is it on a mall? Oh my God, it's fascinating to walk like that because it's so much opportunity to harvest that rain and come back. That's my goal. Come back to the natural numbers. So what we're doing with water harvesting, passive or active systems, and I can talk more about that, we're trying to imitate nature. We're not stealing water from nature. We want to come back to the natural numbers in a city, which is 50% infiltration. Can we infiltrate 50% of that water in San Miguel de Allende? Can we do that? That's a great challenge. And that's a great question. We are developing here rain parks in order to infiltrate as much water as possible. And we have influenced Tucson Water, which is the provider of water here, to create those systems, to create rain parks, to create streets that are infiltrating water in a passive way, just in front of, in Los Camellones. I don't know what to say that in English. Or in the right of way, the distance between the street and our homes. That's the right of way of the city. So anyway, opportunity to water harvesting. Where is the opportunity to infiltrate that water and come back to the natural numbers? I'll stop there again.
Great.
You can tell I get so excited with these type of things.
It's your enthusiasm is infectious, and it's a pleasure to listen to you talk about this. And exciting to think about what rain gardens can do in cities. I'd like to remind folks out there listening that we're almost at the Q&A section of this chat. So throw us whatever questions you have in the chat box, and I'll be monitoring it, and we'll throw them back to Joaquin. Before we get there, so start now. Hit us with all of the questions, and we'll sort through them. Before we get there, Joaquin, we've talked about some different things that folks can do in their houses, and we've talked about some of your work with the city of Tucson on public policy. I know that Watershed Management also does a lot of work in schools and in other educational contexts. Can you tell me a little bit more about why that is, and why do you focus on education?
Well, it all starts with who goes to schools. Who goes to a school is the future of your city. And those students, regardless if they are in elementary, high school, colleges, and universities, students are the future citizens of your city. And maybe one of those students that you're talking with of that city is going to be the mayor of San Miguel, is going to be the mayor of Tucson. And actually, one of the new mayor of Tucson, she's a huge advocate for this.
Cool.
She came and volunteered with us before she was a mayor. So I hate this word, having an army of students that understand water cycles, that are connected to the watershed, and that transform their schools into water harvesting or rain garden meccas of the Sonoran Desert. So two things here is education, becoming demonstration sites of what can happen in the community, what can happen in a park, what can happen in other schools, what can happen in your house. So the students becomes kind of the voice of transformation, because the students are the ones that design, the students are the ones that implement, and the students are the ones that understand the importance of water harvesting. So in the last 2 years, and this is not just a tiny little thing. I mean, we got a huge grant from NOAA. In NOAA here in the US is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The problem of NOAA, or the problem in the US in the world, is that we don't know how to teach climate change. Climate change, yeah. And so we got a grant of community resilience to climate change. So we're working with schools, water harvesting to diminish the temperature, the heat island effect in our city. So we're creating all kinds of rain gardens in schools, in streets with the students. And that way we can diminish 5 to 10, sometimes to 12 degrees, the heat island effect that is happening in all the cities of the world because of the hard surfaces again. In addition to that, the schools are so ugly. Most of the schools are ugly in the world. So we're transforming that, and the students are doing
Joaquin, sorry to interrupt you. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties on the streaming side, on the YouTube side. Although it looks like we're back. Excellent connection. So a brief summary, Joaquin was talking about different things that they're working on in schools to build the next generation of leaders who know something about water and water systems, the way rivers flows, and the way groundwater works. As you were, onward and upward.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you asked for some questions. I don't know if in the feed there are some questions.
There is. Let's start out with a couple topics that Nicole was bringing up in the chat feed about the quality of rainwater. So there were questions about the quality of rainwater captured on your house, but also a question about like thinking about rainwater as it flows through the city. It picks up oil, it picks up other toxins on the street. How do you deal with that? Talk to me a little about rainwater quality.
Yeah, that's an awesome observation. And yes, there's a lot of things on the street. There's a lot of things on the rooftops. So how do we handle that? That's when you start creating a microclimate thing. The basin where you're going to infiltrate water from the street in this example, quality from the street is different than the quality from the landscape and the quality from the rooftop. And depending on the rooftop that you have, the quality is going to be different. But also is quality for what? What do you want to use that water for? Okay. So if it's for a rain garden, the water quality from the street is actually good. It's actually okay. Don't drink the street, because it has a lot of hydrocarbons, it has a lot of heavy metals. So how do we deal with that? To say the least, it also has poop and all kinds of things. You're infiltrating the water, it has some components. It has wood chips, or it has mulch. We don't have bare ground. It's mulch, which is organic matter. That's one tool. The other tool is native grasses. The grasses that we use in the bottom of the basins can absorb some of those pollutants, up to 70% of hydrocarbons and heavy metals. So in addition to infiltrating water, we're also cleaning that water. But you have to have mulch, you have to have grasses, you have to have additional vegetation in those basins. It's not just a hole on the ground. No, otherwise you are polluting your aquifer, all right? So it has to have some microclimate, microsystem that absorbs some of that. And so that's dealing with the street. If you're going to drain that water, then your best quality of water comes from the roof of a building, from a house, and it just depends what type of roof do you have. All the roofs are fine, all right? But it just depends. If you have metal roof, that's the best quality of water you're going to get, okay? And we highly recommend to test the water if you're going to drink it, regardless of the type of roof that you're going to have. And there are different filtration systems. So just think of cleaner. Is the water that comes from the sky, or is the water that is on a creek or on a river, all right? But also there is pollutants on the sky. In Mexico City, for example, we have a lot of acidic rain. But if you wait, and we measure this, if you wait 10 to 12 minutes in Mexico City, the first rain washed the sky. I love saying this, because the rain is washing the sky. After the 12-minute, acid rains are no longer there. So that's when you collect the water, in this case, in Mexico City. But test the water if you're going to drink it. So we have 2 rainy seasons. We tested twice a year. Our office, we've been 4 years disconnected from the city of Tucson water. We've been drinking the rain, and that's fascinating. We're not paying any water bills. I'm very happy to say that thanks to Caminos de Agua, we are testing these filters here in Tucson, because this is a very great technology again. And with this, I can start drinking the water that I'm collecting in my house. All right. And I don't know, I think this costs like $12, $20 to make, or even cheaper in San Miguel. We have other filtration systems that we use, a lot more expensive. But anyway, in our office is a living lab, so we test different technologies. But it just depends. The quality just depends. What do you want to use that water for?
So to
okay, and if it is,
yeah, that's a lot, and that's awesome. Just to summarize, for those who don't know, what Joaquin just held up was Caminos de Agua's ceramic filter. And to summarize, it sounds like rainwater is good enough quality for a lot of uses, including for drinking, but you have to do your homework and you have to make sure you're treating it right, whether that's with a filter system or whether it's with plants in a rain garden.
Right.
Let's jump over. We have a question from Rob. Do you have any experience with rainwater harvesting from green roofs or working on green roofs where the water has passed through an active garden bed?
Not really, no. And that's another tool, that's another technique. But also, think again, here we are in the desert. It gets so hot. And so it's very hard to the roof as a source of planting because it gets a lot of radiation, right? But think of your city, think of your neighborhood as a sponge, right? Is the roof the opportunity? Here in Tucson, the opportunity is in the ground. It's not in the roof. The opportunity is in the ground, and for water quality, for drinking and better water, the opportunity comes from the roof. But there are some other cities that are developing the sponge cities, I call it. Opportunity. Maybe it is on the roof. Maybe it is somewhere else. But always think of that. Where is the sponge that you can infiltrate or use that water?
For those who are interested in planting on the roof in desert climates, there's been some really interesting research recently, actually, out of the University of Arizona. Look up agrovoltaics. It's co-planting of crops underneath solar panels. There's been a lot of really interesting research coming out here in the last couple of years.
Yep.
Let's move on to one final question, and I'm glad that Dylan asked this question because we haven't had as much of a chance as I would like to talk about policy and how to try to encourage movement of government. So the question from Dylan is, could you talk a little bit more about the process in public policy and the changes that you helped initiate in Tucson regarding capturing rainwater? I know there were some rebates, and if there was anything else, and how something like that could possibly be replicated in Mexico.
Yeah. Policy and politicians. I'm going to start that politicians, it's just a regular whole citizen. Sometimes we put politicians on a pedestal. So just think of a politician is another citizen. Same as that other citizens, they need to be educated. Right? They need to see what is possible, and they need to get inspired. So those three things: education, inspiration, seeing what's possible. Right? And that's how our process starts. And there are some good and bad citizens, good and bad politicians, period. So work with the good politicians. Work with the one that at least ask you questions or is curious. What are you guys? And let me tell you, on the video, the tippy taps, all those things, a lot of the things we do here in Tucson, they were illegal 12 years ago. Right? So we have changed some of those laws. Because of the champions.
What was illegal years ago?
To get water from the street to infiltrate it on a basin. So what we did, we cut the curb, la guarnición, we cut the curb of the street and some water. And we didn't ask permission. We didn't tell anyone. We just started monitoring and measuring things. we went to some politicians, this Tucson Water. Hey, we're doing this. These are the results. We're creating shade, we're infiltrating water, we're not using drinking water to irrigate our rain gardens. And that way you are saving water. Imagine if we start creating this at the street level, at the neighborhood level. And it wasn't that simple. But then Tucson Water, whoa, tell me more about this. But it was one city council. We got a grant. And there are 6 city work offices, we call them here in Tucson, which is kind of las candidaturas, las cancillerías maybe in Mexico. 6, we got a grant and we did 4 rain gardens in their offices. Those city council members, they went and talked with the mayor and the rest of the city council. That's how the rebate program started here in Tucson. Say rebate, if a citizen, a homeowner here in Tucson wants to harvest the rain, they get up to $2,000 as an incentive to do that. That we were able to influence that. We were able to do some of the writing because now it's legal. We were able to influence the capacity because Tucson Water wanted to put the 55-gallon drum things that they don't do anything. So there is no cap. About 2,500-gallon cistern. That city of Tucson reimbursed me $2,000 for that. So that's kind of the policy we help create. But you need to find your champions in the government. And sometimes there are no champions. Sometimes you just need to do the things same as you guys are doing it. But then is the convincing. And it's not easy. It takes time. It's the meetings, it's the minutes, it's all those things. And then it's the timing of things. In Mexico, every 3 years, there is change of things, la, 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 la. So who are your champions? And sometimes it's not the government. Sometimes it's an influential member of the society, like the owner of a hotel. I don't know, like the ones that sells the cars. And there's a great parking lot that you can harvest the rain. Start like that. I love working with politicians because they're so stubborn. They know it all, but they don't. And so just understand that they're a regular citizen that needs to be educated. And it takes time.
Thanks, Joaquin, for such a thorough answer. In our that makes a lot of sense. Find the champions and figure out how to do projects within the context.
And I'm sorry. And the last thing is, it's not us doing the change. It's those champions that are pushing the agenda. We feed that, so then it becomes a project of the champions. Right? That's an important step.
So we're getting a number of other questions in the question box, but we're also running out of time. So for any of those who have submitted questions and haven't gotten your questions answered, Joaquin, do you have something to say about that?
I'm sorry. I was looking at the video.
No, you're good. For those who have submitted questions and haven't gotten them answered, feel free to reach out to us at Caminos de Agua, or directly to Joaquin or to the folks at Watershed Management Group. Like, that's what we're all here for. We're happy to talk about this stuff. We're happy to help.
Right.
Joaquin,
we are in constant communication with Caminos de Agua, and I have a highly respect to that. So if you're in Mexico, and if you're in Guanajuato, if you're in San Miguel, please contact them. If you want to talk to me, you can contact Dylan, you can contact on numbers, or check us online. Google Watershed Management Group. We have a virtual library We have a lot of videos. We have different projects. We have several schools that we have transformed. And sometimes just a before and after picture that, oh, that's what it is. Watershed Management Group, Google that, and it will take us to our webpage.
Great, thank you. So in the last few minutes before we sign off, Joaquin, I'd just like to ask you if there is something that you think that everyone should know on both sides of the border about water. We have folks here who are interested in making changes in their lives, and we have folks here who are interested in making changes in their watersheds and in their states and in their countries. What is one thing that you think folks should know?
I'm sorry, I saw some question there. I don't know from who, talking about policy. Yes, we've been able to influence Mexico. In Sonora last year, green infrastructure law, I think is the first state that has that. Sometimes laws doesn't mean anything, but I had the opportunity to work with a deputy, una diputada, and she was insisting on the law. Okay, go ahead and do the law, that's fine. And for me, the most relevant is to have demonstration sites. All right, if the government is very, very because the laws, if nobody understands, whenever we say water harvesting, nobody's going to do it. All right, let's demonstrate how it works, and then the law will come after that. Not vice versa. Sometimes in Mexico, we want to have the law first, but nobody knows what it is. Green infrastructure, that's the case of Sonora. Nobody knows what it is. And you talk with a developer, what the hell is that? So anyway, make it work and the law will follow. So something for everybody to see, regardless of the scale. Just see what the rain does when it rains in your house. And what can you do with that water? And just see what rain does in your street. Do with that water. Start seeing the water as a resource, because it is a wonderful resource. And sometimes that resource becomes such a nuisance. It takes cars away from you. It kills people because we have all these tremendous volumes of water and tremendous speed of water. I like to say I only do three things. I diminish the speed of water, I spread the water, and I infiltrate the water. Look for those opportunities in your house, in your street, in your neighborhood, and in your city. That's kind of what it is. Something simple. Don't try to complicate your life. I'm actually teaching. I love beer. I'm drinking beer right now. I'm training on how we could BYOB. Build your own basin. And it's also bring your own beer right now. It's going to be on May 1st, and I can send you the links if you're interested. Is how do I start building my own basin in front of the house? And I did all that by myself and my wife with the help of beer. If beer is gone, like a 6-pack, that's where I stop. Okay, there's no more beer. I'm not digging, I'm not excavating, I'm not doing anything else. Start with something simple. Understand what the water is doing. All right?
Thank you very, very, very much, Joaquin. You heard it here first, folks. Bring your own beer and build your own basin. Joaquin,
there you go.
I would love to thank you for spending the time here chatting with us, and for your long-term commitment and partnership with Caminos de Agua. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing from some of your expertise. To everyone out there listening to us this evening, in this time of pandemic and uncertainty, please take care of yourselves and please take care of the people around you. The more we can take these opportunities to chat with each other, to listen to each other, to get to know one another, and to build stronger community together, the more resilient we're going to be bouncing back from this.
And if this, I don't know your time. I don't want. I mean, if there is people that with burning questions, I can stay here a little longer.
I can stay on as well. If there are any questions that you see on the chat and you're really burning to answer, go for it.
I saw, and this is a good challenge for us as both organizations, if we're ever doing this in Espanol. So I will be happy to do this in Espanol.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
De acuerdo. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good. Great. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. Have a great evening or morning or afternoon or middle of the night, wherever in the world you are. And take care. Be well. Stay safe.
Be well. Be safe. Your family. I think if we surround ourselves with nature, we can have a better city. We are building the natural cities as we speak. And the more nature we surround ourselves, our quality of life becomes better.
And there you have it.